Guys, welcome back to Uplate with Charlie Ranger. We've got our second ever guest in the house right now. Now, it's Jennifer Down. Her debut novel, Our Magic Hour, was picked up by text publishers after shortlisted in the Victorian Premier's Literary Award in 2014. It was released this year to some fantastic reviews. Jennifer, hi.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. For those who haven't read Our Magic Hour, can you describe the story, but also like what it is for you specifically?
Yeah, so it's a novel about a group of friends living in Melbourne, and they're dealing with a pretty big trauma, which is the death of one of their own, I guess. They're all in their 20s. And it's not at all autobiographical, but I guess for me it was important to see, I wanted to see some literature set in the city that I live in and that I've grown up in, and something that kind of reflected the time of my friends and I in contemporary Melbourne.
Do you say it's not autobiographical, but like considering it is set like in the city you live in and you know, places you would know, do you find it just naturally sort of seeps in anyway, sort of how you view Melbourne as well?
Oh, I'm sure. It's, you know, they're places that I frequent with my friends.
Yeah.
So in a kind of spatial sense, for sure. But yeah, plot-wise, it's not so much.
Yeah, right. Of course. What makes you want to tell a story? I mean, you're an author. Like, why do you write? Why do you want to tell a story and get it out there?
They're like two really separate things. Like the wanting to tell a story is one thing, but often, at least when I first start writing a story, I'm doing it for myself,
yeah.
And the getting it out there is quite a separate part, and
right.
it's definitely the hardest part.
Yeah.
It's quite enough. I'm quite satisfied writing something for my own purposes to try and keep refining it and making it better, but yeah. It's much more daunting to put it out there.
So do you have, you know, on your computer or whatever, do you have like a bunch of stories that you've started and never just got put into a public domain, or? Yeah,
for sure. And there are some ideas that I have that just don't go anywhere. Yeah. And it's like, I think the idea is good, but it doesn't have legs for the time being. So there's a lot of unfinished drafts. And
that's actually something that I find really interesting, and it'd be great to get your take. Like, when does an idea for you become something more? Like, how do you know when it's going to roll over and you sort of go, oh no, this is one that I can definitely run with and turn it into a full-length novel or whatever it might be?
I think it's when you start to get a good sense of the characters, and you can sort of feel the story grow out of them, but it's also usually as soon as I know what the end of the story will be. It's a lot easier for short fiction, I think. But
so you work knowing how you want to wrap the story up? Yeah,
I don't work backwards, but I usually start with I know where it's going to start and I know where it will end.
That's a massive spoiler alert.
I know. Yeah, it sucks. It makes the whole thing is really boring.
Oh, I knew that was going to happen. There's no point. I also wanted to know, because obviously, as a writer, you know, you obviously have all your projects that you're working on. Do you have any guilty reads on your shelf?
I don't think there's such a thing as a guilty read, because I just think you should own I just think you should be proud of what you love.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. I'm sure I read some really bad stuff.
Were there any books from your past, like when you were a lot younger, that really stand out, that kind of got you into
More
that?
just stuff that like I'm a bit embarrassed about reading now, because I thought it was really groundbreaking at the time.
Goosebumps? Is it
yeah,
Goosebumps?
Exactly.
Oh man, I loved Goosebumps.
Yeah, well, it was really formative for me. No, stuff that like I thought I read when I was 15 and 16, and like everybody else thought it was really profound. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it ended up that everyone else was reading it. And
what is this? You haven't said it yet.
Oh, like stuff like the Beat Generation.
Right.
Writers. Like, I remember the first time I read Kerouac and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then like even 2 years later, you're like, well, that's what everybody was reading.
Yeah.
There's a whole world of other much more diverse voices out there that I need to get into.
Do you find yourself doing that now, kind of going, I'm not sure it's the right way to phrase the question, but do you avoid mainstream, like authors and stuff, so that you can find out really what's going on in all the sort of nooks and crannies of the literary world, or?
No, I don't think I avoid mainstream, but I do try to read diversely, and I don't think diversity is really reflected in the Australian mainstream. So I do, a couple of years ago, I decided I had a weird goal that I wanted to read 75% writers of colour, for instance, because I just noticed, I write down all the books that I read, and I noticed that my list was kind of a little bit whitewashed, and I think that's probably reflective of the Australian lit scene. So I tried to, about 4 years ago, I tried to really shift my reading habits. And that's probably the only conscious thing I do.
Yeah. Was that just with Australian authors, or was that like all
no,
authors, do you mean?
No, that's all authors. Yeah. I try to read as diversely as possible.
Have you seen any like change from doing that, like in the way you approach writing, or?
Probably, I don't know about writing so much because I don't want to tell stories that I'm not the best person to tell, or that I'm not qualified to tell. There are some characters that I wouldn't quite feel comfortable writing because I think I'm not the best person to do it because I don't have that life experience.
Yeah, sure.
And somebody else, like why would I write from the perspective of a queer woman of colour when a queer woman of colour has that first-hand experience, and she can do it a lot better than me, and she probably doesn't necessarily have as many opportunities because that's the kind of unfortunate lay of the land in the current publishing climate.
And I mean, you're talking about, sort of your own experiences in writing, and like you're still quite young. You were telling me just before you turned 26 last week.
Yep.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Did you get a cake?
Yeah, I did. Sorry.
I wouldn't want to be the person that made that for you. No, it's not memorable.
Sorry, no, it's like been 4 birthdays in my life in the last week, 10 days, so I just had to remember.
Not all yours though?
No, I didn't turn 26 4 times.
Great.
It was enough.
Sorry, I'll get back to the question. You yourself, you're quite young, and you've got this successful novel out there now. Do you find that brings with it a lot of pressure for what you do next, or?
No, because like I feel pressure from myself because I like to work hard, but like the Melbourne lit scene or the Australian lit scene is so small, and to feel like there's pressure, like my book is one of so many that have come out this year, and there are so many amazing books that have come out this year by debut Australian novelists that, and people forget about new books so quickly, it kind of doesn't bear getting hung up on your book or your experience. So.
On that, I read that I think next year you're going to release a collection of short stories.
Mm-hmm.
What was the decision that made you go towards the short story now as your next project?
Well, I'd kind of been working on short stories for a little while I was editing my novel, and I think I sort of cut my teeth on short stories. It's a really tough form, but it's one that I really like working with because kind of the architecture is for me more manageable than something as big as a novel, but also at sentence level, short stories have to be perfect. You can't afford any guff that you can kind of get away with in a novel. And so I like the challenge of it, and I also like the kind of diversity of being able to move between different worlds rather than being stuck in the same scene for a long time. So
is that something you think you'll sort of keep pursuing throughout your whole career, that you might sort of just be dipping your toe in?
I hope so, yeah. I think it's a really, I don't know, for me, I feel like it teaches me, reading short stories and writing them, it kind of teaches me something new every time, and I think it's a really good way it makes me a better writer, I think.
Yeah. I have a question. Being now a successful author, does everybody at Christmas time go, hey, so you know how we've got to write Christmas cards? Can you just write mine for me? Does everyone always go to you and say, can you just read over this for me and just,
Actually, my only skill as a friend is being able to proofread people's essays.
Oh really? That's a terrible skill.
I know,
you should not make
shitty.
That public. Can we delete that? Actually?
So it's not so much the writing, but I do some proofreading on the sly for pals. Yeah.
Do you do that as like a job or just as a favour?
Well, both. It's like editing is my day job, but so it's not like a great hardship. I literally do it for a living.
Sure.
And it's a nice way to be able to help people out when they're stressed about uni.
Do you have a goal that you want to achieve with your writing or with your career, or is it kind of so early and you're trying all these different things that you're not really sure what that goal might end up being? Somebody
tweeted at me the other day and said they finished my book and then broke up with their long-term boyfriend.
Great.
And somebody else chimed in on that conversation and said, I finished the book and quit a job that I hated. And I was like,
Okay.
wow, what a thing to, like, you know, make people have big life decisions. That's not it though. No, I don't really have any goals. I just kind of have to keep plodding along and seeing what happens.
And is that kind of the same with the stories that you develop and you come up with, that they just sort of come to you, or is there, do you have an area that you really want to write about next, or?
Yeah, I think I kind of always mine the same things, which are things that I'm inherently fascinated in, and will keep working over until, I don't know, I get sick of them, which is, just human psychology and trauma and memory. And there are so many ways to write about those things, and the relationships and spaces between people. I can't imagine ever getting sick of that. So.
Awesome. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It was wonderful to have you. Guys, the book is Our Magic Hour. Go get it. You can buy it online. You can buy it everywhere.
In bookshops.
Bookshops?
Yeah, you can just walk right in there and flop out the credit card.
Like, wow. Guys, we're going to throw to a break, and when we come back, we have our amazing band, Alaria, to finish us off for tonight.